Chapter 16, The Stormy Climb, North America's Denali, 20,320 feet, average numbers of climbers per year, 1,200. June 21st, 2008, age 11, 4 months short of the world record. Chapter 16. After Aconcagua, I was stoked to continue the 7 summits. It had been a tough mountain, but I had done it. Denali was 2,517 feet lower, but that didn't make it an easier mountain. It would be another tough climb. It would also be more technical than our previous ones. The snow and ice combined with the steep slopes meant we'd need to use ropes and climbing harnesses. Denali, also known as Mount McKinley, is one giant, moody, frozen bear. It's just a few degrees south of the Arctic Circle, and like Aconcagua, it's close to the Pacific Ocean. That means it has some of the fiercest weather in the world, fiercer than Aconcagua. It wasn't a matter of if we'd run into a storm on Denali, but when. In addition, the atmosphere is even thinner than usual at that latitude, so you feel 2,000 to 3,000 feet higher than you really are. It's also the tallest climb in the world when you measure from base to peak. Denali rises 18,000 feet above the Alaskan tundra. Everest rises 12,000 feet from the Tibetan Plateau, so you can start out higher on Everest. Denali would be the most difficult climb yet. Serious German and British mountain climbing expeditions had been the first to reach the summits of the other mountains, but Denali's first climbers had been total amateurs. Reading about them was pretty hilarious. In 1910, 4 Alaskan locals known as the Sourdough Expedition attempted to summit wearing homemade crampons, overalls, and parkas. They were trying to win a bet with a bar owner. 2 of them made it to the North Summit, the lower of Denali's 2 summits. They were carrying bags of donuts, flasks of hot cocoa, and a 14-foot pole with an American flag to plant near the top. Nobody believed these guys had really made it until members of the first documented ascent in 1913 found the pole. That was a cool story, but I also knew that the mountain had taken more than 100 lives over the years, and that only 58% of the climbers who tried to summit were successful, a lower percentage than on Aconcagua. The 3 of us hadn't talked much about Denali, but a few weeks after we got home from South America, Karen called me outside one day after school. "Jordan, come out in trail shoes and bring your crampons. I want to show you something." Why did I need those? "Time for a lesson," she said. "On Denali, we'll be using ropes, carabiners, and a climbing harness. You need to know how to use them and be ready to react quickly and instinctively." I checked out the carabiners, metal loops that would keep us attached to the ropes on the mountain. Hard to believe that our lives could depend on something so small. Karen had tied a rope from the front door to the garage, then up the side of the hill to our neighbor's garage. It was threaded through cars, off the decks of both houses, around trees, and back to the front door again. "Wow, nice job, Karen. What the heck is that?" Karen put a harness around my waist with straps that fastened over the tops of both thighs. Then she attached 2 nylon strings to my harness with carabiners. These are auto-locking carabiners. They are a little harder to unlock than a regular carabiner. But if you are tired and forget to lock your carabiner, these will lock automatically, she explained. I had seen all this equipment around the house. Dad and Karen had raced with it several times, but I never used any of it. "What's all this for?" I asked. "On the steep parts of Denali, there will be ropes anchored in place to help us climb and descend without falling. You'll have to connect yourself to the rope on your own. Dad and I won't be able to do it for you. This is a practice course." I looked at the rope strung all over the place. "Are you serious?" "Oh, yes, I am. Your life and mine will depend on being attached to that fixed rope. It's your lifeline," she said. "Click each carabiner open, hook it around the rope, and let it snap closed to secure yourself." There were 8 inches of snow on the ground. Wearing my spiked crampons, I slid the carabiners easily along the rope. What was the big deal? Then I came to where Karen had attached the rope to the garage door handle. How do I slide around that? I asked. You don't. When you come to an anchor, yell, clipping, to let us know that you're stopping to move around an anchor, Karen explained. Unhook one carabiner and move it past the anchor while you're still attached to the rope with the other. Once the first one is securely in place, unclip the second one to do the same thing. When you're safely past the anchor, yell, clear, to let us know you're done. We went through this routine for hours, up, down, and around, first with bare hands, then wearing gloves. It was hard in the beginning to open and close the carabiners with my gloves on, but I got the hang of it. Now let's see how fast you can do it, she set the timer on her watch. Ready, set, go! After that day, I practiced until I got faster and faster. I never knew when I would come home from school and find a new course winding around the front yard. I loved the challenge, and it became second nature to clip and unclip the carabiners. I could even do it with one hand. Perfect, she said one afternoon as she timed me. Challenge your dad to a race, and I'd put money on you. Knowing how to use a carabiner on a fixed rope raised my confidence, but I was still nervous about climbing Denali. Then, one afternoon, a huge problem jumped out at me. On a really steep slope, what's to keep the carabiner from just sliding down the rope? I asked. Karen grinned. I was waiting to see if you'd ask. That's the next lesson. You'll use an ascender along with your carabiners, she said. I raised my eyebrow, confused. She went inside the house to get one and showed it to me. It had a metal handle I could grip. It does just what the name implies. It helps you ascend or climb a rope, she said, attaching it to my harness with another nylon sling and then clipping it onto the rope. Slide it up the line a ways, then pull down. I tried to do what she asked, but once I slid the ascender up the rope and pulled, nothing happened. It locked. Exactly. The teeth grab onto the rope to keep it from sliding back. There's no way you can slide down the mountain if you're locked in with this. You can only go up. Slide it up the rope, use the handle to pull yourself forward, and then slide it up again. Cool. In the spring, Dad and Karen talked about the expedition one night over dinner. We had all done more research on the mountain and the best routes to the summit. When we climbed Denali, we'd be totally self-sustained, meaning no porters like on Kilimanjaro or mules like on Aconcagua. We had to transport everything ourselves to multiple camps. Expecting the worst weather on Earth, we had to be prepared for anything that might come up. Not only would I be carrying a heavy pack, I'd also be hauling a sled up a glacier. I had gotten really good at Karen's ropes courses, but that didn't mean I was prepared to tow a heavy sled. How do I train for that? I asked. Ask a question around Karen, and the next thing you know, she has a plan all worked out. One day after school, she brought out an 8-foot rope attached to an SUV tire. What's this for? I asked. Endurance and strength. Put on your climbing harness and clip yourself to the rope. Snap, done. Now run to the bottom of the hill, she said. Pulling this tire? It'll run me over. Come on, Jay. Keep it flat on the ground and it won't roll. Okay. I stretched the word out the way Dad does. Hauling that tire, I stomped to the bottom of the hill and bent over, panting. That had been incredibly hard. Are we done now? She wrinkled her brow. The real test is going back up. She had to be kidding. Dragging a heavy tire 400 yards up a steep, bumpy dirt road? I glared at her. You can do it, she said. I clenched my jaw and decided I'd show her. I leaned into the hill and planted one foot after the other. Up, up, up. By the time I reached the house, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break a rib. You're doing great, Karen shouted. Yeah, right. It took us a while to figure out the tire thing. At first, Karen tied the rope all the way around it, but after a few laps, the rope would wear through. Sometimes the tire would bounce on its side and roll past me down the hill, forcing me to run to keep up with it. Once we had it worked out, I'd walk up the hill from the bus stop after school, grab my iPod, and run 8 or 10 rounds with the tire before heading out to race mountain bikes or hang out at the lake with Cameron and Casey. As soon as I got used to the weight of the tire, Karen and Dad took my training to a higher level by adding 20 pounds of canned food and bottles of water to my pack to carry at the same time. No freaking way, I thought. I was so frustrated, and I wanted to tell them to back off, but instead, I rolled my eyes and looked away. Come on, Jordan, you can do it. One step at a time, I told myself. I made it all the way to the top on my first try. Awesome, J-Man. Give me 5, Dad shouted. I lifted my arm as far as the heavy pack would allow me and met his hand. That crazy big smile of his spread across his face. The training for Denali could be exhausting. I constantly tried to bargain for fewer trips up and down the hill, but I did get stronger and stronger. Dad's pushing forced me to recognize just what I was capable of, and I'd need every little bit of strength I could muster to be ready for Denali. I was working on my strength, and we had all the necessary gear, but we needed sleds to haul it all up the mountain. A friend we called King Richard was always volunteering to help. He was a big, strong guy with pale skin and a ginger-colored goatee. He had been to Denali twice already, and even though he'd never made it to the top, he had some creative ideas. I'll make you the same sleds I did for my team, he said, a note of pride in his voice. The guides thought they were brilliant. Instead of ropes, I used PVC to keep the sleds behind us, especially on slanted terrain. That probably kept them a good distance from you too, Karen said, instead of chasing you downhill and running into your legs. My sleds are the best, he said. With King Richard's sleds, it was as if we had put the last puzzle piece in place. Before I knew it, 6th grade was coming to an end, and we were packing to go. Ready or not, I was going to climb Denali. So our chapter 16 question is, what do you think Jordan's biggest challenge is going to be on Denali?